Hello, this is Paul Lennon from Guatemala. Good morning to you. And this is the next chapter, the next episode in my exciting life story, autobiography, before, during, and after the Legion of Christ. And it's the third part now, after the Legion of Christ. And it is chapter 13 of my book in its various editions. First of all, Our Father Maciel, who art in bed. And then I changed that to a naive and sentimental Dubliner in the Legion of Christ, etc. Um, these books are readily available in your Amazon bookstore, and they're making me very rich. So keep making me rich. This chapter 13, I hope it was chapter 13, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, reviewing personal correspondence with Father Maciel, whom we called Nuestro Padre, our Father. And this particular chapter also gets into the power struggle, my power struggle with Father Maciel, as I make my way into the Diocese of Washington and ease out of the Legion of Christ in the canonical sense of the word, after bursting out of there, my confrontation with Father Maciel in Cotija in November 1984. Now I'm easing out of the Legion and doing the canonical process, one might say, but under the auspices now of the Archdiocese of Washington. And this particular part here, this chapter in the book, I had called Treacherous Transition. So that was rather dramatic, meaning the treacherous transition from the Legion of Christ priesthood to the diocesan priesthood. And I already have said it repeatedly that the Legion sometimes makes this very difficult for priests. And this may be true even to the present day. I'm now asking some of the younger priests how hard it was for them to transition from the Legion into the diocese. And they're telling me, even the nicest guys are telling me that they had to be very cautious about that transition, and they needed to keep a few cards up their sleeve in order to negotiate, to navigate that treacherous transition. But now, this particular little talk today is kind of like I'm starting to toy with Father Maciel. I said in Spanish, toreando con el Padre Maciel, which doesn't have I can't find a translation in English, but it's bullfighting with Father. I'm the toreador, the toreador. He's the bull, so I'm toreando, toying with Father Maciel to a certain degree. Anyway, and I've covered some of this. I explained my letter to Archbishop Hickey in the last session. So this is what I wrote in the book, because that last session was new. It was not in my manuscript. But now I'm going to read from my autobiography on page 240 on the original old version. And it says, the ordinary reader, even Catholic, has no idea how complicated the life of a Catholic priest can be, especially when he is leaving a religious order. That's what people call religious order. Religion is a religious congregation, technically speaking. Orders are the old ones, the venerable orders with solemn vows. We had simple vows, but they could be perpetual simple vows, and they needed a special dispensation at least from the superior general, if not from the sacred congregation for religious, of which I was a member. The Catholic Church does not allow any of her priests to freelance, float, or sell their pastoral talents to the highest bidder. In order to legitimately exercise his priesthood, a Catholic priest must always be under the authority, jurisdiction of a bishop in union with the Pope. Though the sacrament of holy orders makes him a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek, he cannot practice without the necessary authorization from a bishop or a religious superior. Sometimes these are called faculties. There are to be no white or black knights in Holy Mother Church. You have to be under some feudal lord. That's really bad, isn't it? In order to joust in this field of the Lord, Sir Priest must seek the favor of at least one feudal lord. And so, cantering out of his religious order enclosure, the priest finds the meadows strewn with thorny thickets, among which canonical rules and regulations rear their bloated carnival heads. My God, I was very literary here. I was also negotiating, and this is what I said the last time, with the Archdiocese, my migratory status and trying to get my green card or permanent residency in the USA. As a foreign priest, I had been technically an illegal alien for 13 years in Mexico. I remember approaching with apprehension the U.S. consulate in Merida after my breakup with the Legion. The middle-aged Caucasian woman who interviewed me was extremely kind and gave me a visa for the U.S. based on my valid Irish passport. She must have known I was a padre, for the visa reflected the status of a religious minister. I was so confused at the time I did not know I was holding something better than a tourist visa. My status as a minister would make it easier to apply for permanent residency as a priest of the Archdiocese of Washington. It was still dicey. I had not incarnated because I did not want to deceive Archbishop Hickey into believing I had a rock-solid vocation to the priesthood. At the same time, I was asking the diocese to do me a favor. Anyway, I am glad that diocesan administrators were kind and shrewd enough, or Uncle Sam turned a blind eye, and I did get my green card around 1987, so 2 years later. This was good for my ego. Not having it a year or two earlier prevented me from taking a de facto leave of absence when I felt the urge after scarcely 1 year into my diocesan ministry. So you remember I was going back and forth about asking for a leave of absence and then not taking it from the diocese, and then playing with Fr.Maciel, telling him I wanted a leave of absence from the religious order, which would be a kind of a temporary dispensation or something. Exclaustration. Oh my goodness, aren't we good? Yes, from the religious life. And I'm toying with Fr.Maciel about this. How would I get a job without a green card? How about getting some financial assistance from the Legion through my own personal Caesar? So another idea occurred to me, some financial assistance from the Legion, which might kind of help me make the transition. And that's another little chapter in this part. I had written to Fr.Maciel in December 85 with some requests, my letter reflecting more peace and poise. In February 86, I received a reply. Fr.Maciel's reply reflects his greater prudence now that he knew I was under the patronage of the Diocese of Washington DC. Fr.Maciel or his secretary dots his canonical I's. And I said in the Spanish version that at this stage, as I was getting a little bit settled into the Diocese of Washington, Fr.Maciel and company and his secretaries and his writers were doing a little bit of CYA, which I will not translate for you. Thy kingdom come, Fr.Maciel, LC Private, Wednesday, January 29, 1986, to Father Paul Lennon, St. Matthew's Cathedral, 1725 Rhode Island Avenue, Washington, D.C., 2036. My abode for my happy abode for 4 years. Dear Paul in Christ, I have received your letter of December the 22nd last year. When you explain your present situation, I thank you for your Christmas greetings and express my best wishes for the new year that has just begun. I appreciate your efforts and interest in being prudent and avoiding any kind of scandal or hurried decision. I respect your intention after consulting with the Archdiocese of Washington Chancellor. So I had slipped this in here to let Maciel know that I was, and I was talking to the Chancellor, who, is basically the Archdiocese lawyer. He's the canonical lawyer for handling dispensations, and also annulments. I appreciate your efforts, etc., etc. Blah, 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 blah. After consulting with the Archdiocese of Washington Chancellor, to take a leave of absence, that's what it's called, from priestly ministry so as to reflect on your priesthood and vocation in a quiet atmosphere. For my part, I can only assure you of my prayer for the Holy Spirit to enlighten you and to sustain you in this very special time of your life. I have given orders to Father Antonio Izquierdo, General Prefect of Studies, to send you all the academic documentation in our possession or that we can get for you from ecclesiastical universities in Rome. So I must have said in my letter, which I don't have, that I was asking also, you're asking for this, I'm going to ask for that, and I was asking for my documentation, which at that time was also very tricky. Very often the Legion did not cooperate with the outgoing member. They just kind of did not answer you. Anyway, now Maciel comes back with his requirements, as I say, dotting his canonical I's. Not having any formal petition from you for dispensation from your vows. Now listen to this. And I did write a letter. There was a letter I wrote, the first letter I wrote, whatever it was, 19th of December the year previously. I had said I was asking for, I had been a little bit rash, but I had said I wanted to get a dispensation, or at least an exclaustration, which was allowed by canon law for 3 years for those religious who wanted to think about their calling. And so he's saying he didn't receive this. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. With the Legion, you never know when they're telling lies or when they're telling the truth. And please, you gullible, you nice Catholic priest believers, forgive me, I'm creating a word. You priest believers, make an exception for the Legion of Christ. They can tell lies and they can deceive you. If you don't take my word for it, then do your own research, and hopefully you don't experience it personally. So now he says, the Sacred Congregation for Religious and Secular Institutes has asked us to regularize your canonical situation. Therefore, I beg you to send me as soon as possible. Now, this about the Sacred Congregation for Religious has asked us to regularize your I think this is a lie. Because Maciel, I don't think Maciel has approached. There's no reason for him to approach yet the Sacred Congregation for Religious. And I've said before, I've repeatedly said that the Legion doesn't like approaching the Congregation for Religious and Secular Institutes, because that means that some of the members are leaving, and the Legion is no longer this perfect religious institution where everybody is happy and hundreds come in and nobody ever loses. And nobody ever leaves, excuse me. This was my bone of contention with Fr.Maciel when I had my showdown with him at the Cotija Corral. We got all these wonderful hundreds coming in every year, and what about the hole in the sack? And people are leaving. But Maciel goes on. Okay, he goes on himself or his writers. So he's asked me for 4 things. 3 things. 1, 2, 3. As soon as we receive these documents, we will present them together with a letter from the General Director containing the Council's decision. Now, here again, this is a lot of baloney, forgive me. And Maciel always, Maciel was saying, I can't make this decision on my own. I have to always consent with the Council. Again, baloney, white lies or blue lies or black lies. And you go, as soon as we receive these documents, we will present them together with the letter from the General Director containing the Council's, el Consejo, the Council's decision, forward them to the Congregation for Religious. I wish you, Father Paul, all the best for your life, and I recommend myself to your prayers. That was just in case I was still saying prayers. Forgive my facetiousness. Yours affectionately, your servant always in Jesus Christ, Maciel, LC. and I show my Spanish speakers, signed by Fr.Maciel in blue ink. So that's enough for now. Take care of yourself. I hope you like my shirt. This is one of several typical Guatemalan shirts, which uh, which as you can see, they're colorful and better than the bland colors I often use here. So take good care, and thanks very much for following me. This is for all those people who are leaving, who have left, and who will leave.